Good afternoon and welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. I'm Doug Buchanan, Editor-in-Chief of Columbus Business First and a member of the CMC Board of Trustees. Welcome to CMC's annual Harrison Smith Legacy and Civic Engagement Forum, recognizing excellence in downtown development. We're so pleased you're all here with us today. Before we begin, a few important thank yous. Thank you to today's forum presenter, the Harrison Smith Legacy and Civic Engagement Fund. Thank you to today's sponsors, the Smoot Construction Corporation, Keeler and Nadler Family Wealth, Smith & Hale, MKSK, and the Sarah Gormley Gallery. Thank you to the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation and the Columbus Dispatch for presenting today's live stream. Let's thank all of those supporting today's forum. Okay, the new Downtown Columbus Strategic Plan was created with the help from nearly 2,000 community members who attended workshops and responded to surveys. It outlines a vision for our downtown's core that's more livable, friendly to pedestrians, and reduces surface parking. Today, we're excited to dig into the new Downtown Columbus Strategic Plan with our panelists. And to introduce today's speakers, please welcome Andy Keeler, President and owner of Keeler and Nadler Family Wealth. Andy.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Andy Keeler, and I'm the president of Keeler and Nadler Family Wealth. I'm often asked what I do and how I'm different. I suspect most of you that work with financial advisors will hear them opine on the stock market, prognosticate about the direction of the economy, or dazzle you with all kinds of confusing terminology about your asset allocation. We believe that the upside is elsewhere. We believe that there's upside in knowing now, in November or December, what your tax liability is going to be come April, so you're not caught unaware. The upside is in knowing that if something happens to your 22-year-old son or daughter, you have the legal authority to act on their behalf. The upside is in knowing that if you are considering remodeling your home versus buying a new one, you have a trusted advisor that can help you navigate that decision. With that, today it's my pleasure to introduce this fine panel of esteemed visionaries, and you can add that to your curriculum vitae. When I was asked why I chose to sponsor today's forum, the answer was very easy. In addition to my day job helping clients make smart financial decisions, I also happen to be a Dublin City Council member. I believe that rising tides raise all ships. And what's good for the region, good for Columbus, is good for the city of Dublin, and it's good for my business. Just as landing Intel wasn't only a win for New Albany, it's a win for the entire region. The panelists today are visionary doers that clearly live by the mantra that the future of Columbus is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it takes vision, perseverance, and a degree of risk to accomplish it, which parallels the work we do for our clients. I'm very excited to hear our panelists' insights. And so please help me welcome today's speakers, Michael B. Coleman, former mayor of Columbus, partner with Ice Miller, and chairman of the Columbus Downtown Development Corporation's Board of Directors. Greg Davies, chief executive officer of the Columbus Downtown Development Corporation. And Jeff Edwards, the chairman, CEO, and president of Installed Building Products and Edwards Companies. And our host, Jessica Ralston, anchor with Good Day Columbus on WSYX. You can learn more about today's speakers in your forum flyers. Jessica, we look forward to hearing today's forum.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing from them too. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. Very impressive turnout in the crowd. It's a great panel that we're going to hear from today and a really, really great discussion. I work down the street. I live in downtown Columbus. I'm very passionate about it. I have strong opinions. They get me in trouble sometimes. But you know, I'm half Italian. I'm from Youngstown, Ohio, so I get in trouble all the time anyway. So let's get started. We just mentioned the Columbus Downtown Development Corporation and the Downtown Strategic Plan. I think the amazing thing about that is it had a lot of community input. And you can't have progress and build a better city without hearing from the people who live and work in it. They are the future, and they are part of success. So, Greg, I'm going to ask you the first question. Can you talk more about the strategic plan and how it really came about?
Sure. Thank you. First of all, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Greg Davies. So I was hired in about a year and a half ago, and the first charge that we received at CDDC, there had been a strategic plan under former Mayor Coleman around 2014, and that was a lot of the placemaking that you're familiar with Columbus Commons, the Scioto Mile, Veterans Memorial, a lot of buildings, a lot of construction projects. And what Mayor Ginther and the board told us was, we now have a reason to come downtown, but we need to get more people downtown. We need downtown to be 24/7. We need downtown to be accessible to everyone, affordable to everyone, and there needs to be something to do for everyone. So with that charge, our team got together with our friends at MKSK, who have been absolutely wonderful partners, and we went out and we talked to over 2,000 residents. We met with every business community, any kind of leader that we could, not just downtown, not just the city, but throughout the region. And we really took that to heart. We talked about difficult things that maybe our organization isn't going to manage or run, but we knew was important, like transportation. So we really took about a year to do that, a very thorough process. Amy Taylor, who works with me at CDDC, led that project and just did an outstanding job. And I have the good benefit of having Chairman Coleman and Jeff, and also Sandy Doyle-Ahern, who's on our board, is here as well, and they've just been spectacular. So our goal is really to make a 24/7 downtown, and we'll get into a lot more details about it, but that's the genesis of the plan.
Well, we'll take it to Mayor Coleman now, because I know you were an original champion of downtown. You've seen some changes over the years. What do you think, good or bad, has happened since you really got involved and said, I want this city to thrive?
Well, I'll start out by saying nothing bad.
Shocking.
Downtown was at a critical juncture back in 99 and 2000. I can barely remember it anymore, so long ago, when I became the mayor. And at that time, it was at a crossroads. You can go on Broad and High, roll a bowling ball down the middle of Broad and High at 6 o'clock in the evening every day, or any hour on the weekend, and you wouldn't hit anybody because there was nobody there, everybody had left. Downtown was only a place where you come to work, and people would speed out back to the suburbs. And we felt, and Greg Davies is part of that, we felt, we needed to reinvest in downtown, because downtown is every neighborhood's neighborhood. Everyone in the city of Columbus owns a piece of the rock in downtown. It's the one common thread, the one common thing between everybody, everything, and every neighborhood. And that is the success of its downtown. And the reason is because that's where the economy is driven by the jobs that are generated in downtown, the jobs that put money in the general fund to create a budget for police and fire and housing and rec centers. It is our living room and our playroom, where people can come downtown and enjoy each other as a community. And it is the unifying factor of our city. We have the arts downtown that we want to promote even more, right, Tom? Yes. We have a riverfront that is the best of the best in the nation now, but it wasn't always that way. We had people in our community, business leaders, civic leaders, folks all over that wanted to find a way to do something downtown. We had great doers like the man down at the end here, Jeff Edwards, who came into my office, I don't even know when it was, a long time ago, 20 years ago, 15, whenever it was. And he said, I have an idea. He said, I have a dream. I'm putting him up there, guys. And it's all coming together. Look at what he's done in our downtown. So that's a long answer to a short question, and I'll shut up.
Once a politician, always a politician. Thank you, Mayor. We'll give it to you then, Jeff, because, you have to believe in a downtown to invest in it. Let's talk about goals for the future, because you're right, the city does have a lot to offer, but obviously we can do so much more. That's why there is a strategic plan. And if any of you are on social media and you read the comments people make about the things they want to see happen down here, the list is pretty long. So what do you think, Jeff, you would like to see happen here?
Well, first I want to preface my comments by saying it's impossible to follow him. And unfortunately, it seems like it's happened more often than makes me feel comfortable, but I'll give it a shot anyway. Obviously, as was hinted at, there have been a lot of really great improvements made to downtown. We lack still, though currently, kind of a connectivity of a lot of those activity centers and a lot of those major improvements, whether that be vehicular or other forms of transport or even just walking. So, in addition to that, to get to and from those things that lack the connectivity, there's really a lot of times no interest. So, for instance, if Columbus Commons has been very, very successful in the River South in that area, to get from that successful area, let's say, to north into the, say, Gay Street area or into the Arena District, there's just no pleasant, interesting way to do that. And so that's one of the things that I think we really need to work on and try to improve, and speaks, even the strategic plan speaks to that. There's some ideas that have been floated around, not only in the strategic plan, but I know at the CDDC level too, about helping to kind of prop up some of the retail uses, both in terms of kind of the diversity of those retail and restaurant uses, but also kind of more inclusionary in that way, and to kind of make the numbers work for them, because it's both as a landlord and as a business operator in downtown Columbus, still, it's not, really a home run or an easy putt. So I think we're going to have to lean in that regard and try to make some of those kind of improvements too. But I think the reality, again, a long answer to a short question, downtown is the place, though, that we can't, we have a terrible housing shortage in the city of Columbus. And I say that's really the whole metropolitan area, especially in light of what's going on with Intel and a lot of the job growth we hear about. And there's nowhere in Columbus that's positioned so well as the downtown area to go ahead and try to take advantage of and build a lot of housing for a lot of people. And it's also the most green way to make it happen, because things like, infrastructure, roads, police department, fire, gas, water, sewer, electric, all of that's in place. The city of Columbus, and I don't remember the year exactly, but let's just say in that 1950 to 60s type range, was home to about 40,000 people. So the goal is to get back to that 40,000 person number from what is now just over 10,000, a little over 11,000. So, and that's by 2040. Now, whether that's completely realistic or not, I guess that remains to be a question, but I think there's a real opportunity for us to make a very big impact on the number of residents downtown as a result of what's coming in front of us.
Well, that was going to be part of the next question. That is a 250% increase, a goal of 40,000 people living downtown by the year 2040. It's a lofty goal. It's a high goal. Let's talk about that a little bit more. And more, Jeff, we have to talk about affordable housing. Building the housing is great, but we're at a point right now where it's getting tough. I mean, $3,000 and upwards for a 2-bedroom in downtown Columbus is not feasible for most people. So we can keep building new apartments, but if people can't afford to live in them, I'm just wondering which course you're going to take in order to get people, we bring people down here, but is it going to be affordable for the vast majority of residents? Yeah.
So I know it's a stated goal, I think, of both the administration, clearly of Mayor Ginther, and really CDC to the extent that we're able to help at all too in that regard, to make sure there is an affordability workforce component type housing stock in downtown Columbus. I can tell you, as a real estate developer who's not even very good at making not affordable apartments not affordable, if you know what I mean, that it's not an easy thing to get to work out financially. I mean, we're building a building next door to the Columbus Club currently that will be not affordable. And the returns are next to nothing, even with tax abatement. So the idea of having to burden the downtown real estate with that, with a requirement like, workforce housing, let's say, or affordability requirement is not going to happen probably in and of itself in the private sector. It's going to need some help probably. And we all want it, right? For a lot of reasons, downtown and elsewhere. The reality is today, there's never been a more expensive time to try to build anything. Interest rates have gone the other way, and there's not a place that's probably more expensive, especially when you go up to the degree that you're encouraged to go up in downtown Columbus, that just drives costs up too. So, I'm building my personal residence downtown. I wish I knew Mr. Keeler before, because he said he would have the answer for me to make that experience more pleasant than it's been. But everything costs a ton, so is all I can say. And it takes forever. So.
Could I add something to
Yes,
that?
absolutely.
Just in terms of the affordable housing, that was, again, as I spoke earlier, that was one of the key tenets of the mayor. And we started, and we're going to be opening in October. We're building 100 units that are 60, 80, and 100% AMI, which is average median income, which is affordable workforce by any standard. And it's going to be right on Topiary Park, and we're very excited about that. We had some dollars left over from a previous program, and Mayor Ginther and the administration put in more dollars. And the whole point was, this was before the discussion got started, and he hired Aaron Prosser to be the housing czar and to do that and to work with all the municipalities. And I think now we're at this crisis moment with Intel coming where we really need to figure this out. And he wanted to put a stake in the ground that said, well, we're going to do it downtown to show everybody that can be done. And to Jeff's point, there is subsidy. And I think the city and the county and the state and others will continue to provide subsidy for quality projects downtown. And I think that they can help with parking and with all the infrastructure that Jeff talked about. But there's no question someone's going to have to fill that gap. But I think there's a willingness now to fill that gap. I think people see affordable housing not as necessarily just a social issue, but an economic development issue. We do have a housing crisis regionally where there's just not enough getting built. And then you add on top of that the difficulty of just 60 and 80% getting that met. But I think we're doing the right things to do that. I think the conversations that are taking place regionally, I think suburbs are beginning to understand the impacts of not having it. But I think we can do some more work downtown, and that's been our charge, and that'll continue to be our goal. So I just wanted to add that.
Well, part of that charge, too, has to be retail. And we'll stay with you for a minute, because during the protest in 2020, and then, we got hit with COVID, we saw businesses forced to shut down and leave, and they just couldn't recover. And it is disheartening to walk around downtown and see empty storefronts or see what was there and is no longer there. It's a huge part of developing the city. What is part of the plan to get businesses to come back downtown?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with your statement. We have tried really hard. We started in April and encouraged all the large businesses, the governments, to bring their workers back. First of all, we need people back to work. I know it's difficult, and a lot of companies struggle to get people full-time, but the truth is downtown needs people. So the first priority then is within our control is to get everybody to come back to work. Secondly, I think we need the 40,000 residents. Retail has always been an issue downtown, just because retail is a creature of people. Where people are, retail will follow. And so we need to get the people to live downtown. We really need to focus on that, get people back to work. I think Jeff is the PNC building downtown is a great example of looking at things differently. That's a large office tower that's probably seen its best office use, and it's now being converted to residential. And there's a lot of buildings similar to that we can begin to partner with developers like Jeff and government agencies and us to try to build that. That's a lot of people that could come quickly into some big buildings, and that would add to the retail inventory. And so that's really what we're excited about. We want people to be able to walk. A lot of people, grocery store is something that's not necessarily downtown. On the peninsula, if you're familiar, behind COSI that CDDC's been working on with the city and some developers, there's talk of us, we're trying to incentivize to get a grocer there. And we think that would really help, along with the work that Brett Kaufman's done at Gravity and a lot of the stuff in Franklinton, and it all just begins to feed itself, and all these people will begin to come downtown, and that's our hope. I think we can't do anything without more people living downtown. I think that's the key.
It's true. Well, Mayor, one of the things about getting people to come downtown, whether it's to work, live, play, is that they want to feel safe. And what's the one thing I hear from people who live in the suburbs where I used to live is, it's not safe down there. I don't want to go down there. I don't feel comfortable. And that's not the image we want to protect. And we want people to know you can come down here and you're going to be okay. What do you think are some strategies to improve safety in the city and to let people know that this is a place where they should feel comfortable?
Well, I'll start with a declaratory statement. Downtown is safe for everybody. Everybody. That's where I'll start. Now let me roll it back a little. A couple summers ago, we did have a couple challenges. COVID had hit. Downtown was vacant and abandoned in many ways. People had left downtown. Employees had gone out. And the bad guys showed up. As more people come downtown, they leave. We have, at CDDC, increased safety opportunities, working with the Columbus Division of Police and Mayor Ginther on things we could do downtown. So I will tell you, I got all kind of stories because I'm probably the oldest person in the room now. But when we started this effort downtown, the same thing was talked about then. It's going to be not safe downtown. Why are you talking about people living downtown? And the truth is, it's now 40,000. That's our goal. When back in 2002 or 3, I said we're going to have a $10,000 people goal to bring people downtown, and people thought I was crazy. Housing downtown? Why would anybody want to live downtown? Do you remember that? Who's old enough to remember that? Yes. And the truth is, I didn't do a study. I made it up on the way to the press conference. This is a study. And the study, that's a true story. The study says that our goal ought to be 40,000 because I think we can get there. And we've done everything there is to do to make our downtown safer. Now, I will say this one last thing. Surface parking lots are the enemy of downtown Columbus. In many ways. In many ways. What we learned, and when CDDC started figuring this thing out, under Greg and Amy's leadership, there were some car thefts and break-in on some of these surface parking lots. Oh, and by the way, the surface parking lots are blocking us from developing the rest of downtown and more housing, more retail. And so I think, and I know the administration is going to look at this, how do you incentivize someone who's holding on to a 100-space surface parking lot to change its use from a surface parking lot, and how do you use the hammer as well? You got to do both. And I hope that's going to be looked at in time. But I think surface parking lots is the enemy of development downtown in many ways. And we start eliminating some of that, putting good buildings and good retail, nice housing, affordable housing. That perception will change.
Good answer.
Thank you.
All right. Jeff, well, speaking of, just off the cuff, surface parking lots, you're developing there, right, on High Street near Gay, putting up a building that's going to get rid of a big surface lot that's kind of like a gaping hole. Is that your project?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's one lot, Mayor, that will be gone. So one less lot in the city.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what I think is the third component that I hear most from people, neighbors and friends, is obviously downtown, it's transportation. People talk about a light rail system. They want something, some lofty projects. Big things would need to happen. That's open to any of you in terms of improving transportation downtown and what you would like to see happen, and what would probably be the most successful for everyone.
Yeah, I think the strategic plan, it definitely raised that. A lot of people expressed those concerns. And one of the things that's come out of it, and, you know, I would point back before you laugh at what I'm about to say to 14 when we did a plan, and if you look at the plan, everything was executed. But we're going to work with the city to do a transportation plan downtown to determine, you know, exactly what needs to get done. We need friendlier bike routes. We need it to be more walkable. We need to figure out the one-way streets and whether some of those should be two-way. And we just need to be more concerned about people walking from work to where they live, to where they play, rather than getting in their car, leaving their office, and getting out of downtown. And that's kind of how it's been designed, and that's what we need to really look at. The city is committed to funding a study, and we are going to work closely with the city and their consultant to do that. But the main goals would to be more of a neighborhood feel, more friendly to bikes, more friendly to pedestrians. Obviously, we work very closely with CODA. They have a Link Us project that has some bus rapid transit involved in that. We're very intimately involved with that. We're hoping they're successful. I think we'll hear more about that in 2023. But that's the main goal.
Has part of your discussion been, especially in European cities, have been successful with really focusing on cyclists and pedestrians and either banning cars completely or reducing the amount of traffic greatly? Has that been part of the discussions?
I think traffic's okay. It's just keeping it downtown and keeping people seeing the retail and doing all that. But, you know, Columbus is a very car-friendly place, and we need to break ourselves of that. And historically, the public has not supported, you know, rapid transit. But I think we're at a point where we're beginning to grow. The city's still growing like crazy. I think Intel, the airport, these are places that are going to become increasingly more important, that transportation's a key to that. So I don't know that we'll ever look like a European city, but I do think there's opportunities like bus rapid transit and, you know, bikes and all of that. And of course, you can't bike year-round. I'm sure some people would argue, but that's another challenge of Columbus is the winter. So, but those are all things that we're going to be looking at.
Okay. You mentioned, Mayor, the riverfront. A lot of people have a lot of ideas about the riverfront. Certainly, the Sidle Mile is one of the most beautiful parts of this city, but a lot of people think more could be done. It could be a really magical place where people could gather. What are your thoughts on what could be done there, and what would you maybe like to see happen there?
Well, let me start by saying that the vision I had is happening now, and it just has happened. And so I will tell you, wasn't that long ago, when you were in Youngstown, the riverfront was dirty, filthy, nasty, disgusting, and it smelled terrible. And it was super wide, and it had sediment in the river where you could almost walk across the river if you jump from one sediment to the other. I mean, it was, and you see dead fish around and trash and grocery carts, and the smell was atrocious. And of course, nothing could happen. Under CDDC leadership, it's all been transformed to a place we call Sidle Mile. And so don't take for granted what has occurred thus far, because it is an incredible transformation from where it was to what it is today. Next steps is to see how the riverfront can connect up with all the other discussion about the river fronts that embrace other parts of the community and how we all work together. Am I right about that? And it's called the Five Thrive or the Thrive Five. What's it called? Rapid Five. The Rapid Thrive Five. Just change the name. The Rapid Five is the Rapid Thrive Five. For each one to work, it has to thrive with each other. Rapid, yeah. And, but it needs to be recreational, a place where, before, if you put your finger in the river, you pull it out and you wonder if you still have a finger left. Now you can fish, now you can boat, and we need to do more things on the riverfront. We need to preserve the cultural aspects of some of the frontage on the river. You know, and I looked at what happened in Chicago. Rather than put a bunch of apartments up on the riverbank, I think it's a place where the community comes together, the cultural riverfront. And I think that's where it is today. More cultural opportunities on the riverfront, right, Denise? I think I saw you here. And so collaboration with some of the other efforts on water and rivers, in making it a place where people like to be, fun to be, and enjoy, and activities on the banks and on the river itself is what we need.
To that point, we are redoing the Scioto Mile Fountain. We're working with Columbus Recreation and Parks. We're going to completely redo that. We have worked this past summer to do some pilots along the river, whether it's a happy hour, to get people kayaking, to get people that haven't had that opportunity to pay for that to come down and experience it. The mayor was talking about, I'll call it Rapid Five. I was fortunate enough to be asked to be on their board, and we met. And one of the key areas is the area we're sitting in. Right, if you look out the window, you can see how important this piece of land would be, and it's owned by the city, and in a few years they'll have the ability to potentially redevelop it, and we're very excited about that. So you could see us beginning to activate this river not only for restaurants or activities or just people having recreation, but Rapid Five's idea is to connect it to all the waterways and to all the paths, and it's very ambitious. It's going to be very difficult, but it's the right thing to do, and I think the timing of all of our efforts is coming together at a really good time. And I think to the mayor's point, and it's a great point for those of you that have been here 20 years, it's very different downtown, and we need to not lose sight of the progress we made. And I think in another 20 years, it'll be unrecognizable again. So that's our mission.
From a programming, I agree on the programming point 100% and the activities. But in addition to that, now what we have that we didn't have even 10 years ago is a major part of, what is, now defined as downtown central business district across the river. So, before there really wasn't, reason's not the right word, but there wasn't a lot of, kind of traffic across it. And when I say that, population base that are going to use the central business district and vice versa, it just was more separate than it is or needs to be now going forward. Now that, whether I happen to agree on the exact timing on what happened on the peninsula or not is irrelevant. We do as a city still kind of suffer to a degree by the sheer size of our central business district, which is what leads to these connectivity issues and the transportation issues. But now that it's there and it's pretty spectacular, and it's, I think, a lot. I grew up here in Columbus, and if you'd asked me that, what's currently on the peninsula was going to be on the peninsula even not too many years ago, I'd say you were crazy. But at this point, now you knit it together, and what's going to knit it together has the potential to, assuming we solve the connectivity part of it and make it interesting to get back and forth, is the river. Now it's going to be front yard or backyard, however you want to look at it, for a lot of people.
And I think that where we sit today, right here, is a juncture where rivers come together. And this place right here is probably the most underutilized, poorly planned location in downtown Columbus. And we can transform this over the next few years. I hate to say that. and I love the chandeliers. However, my hope is that under Mayor Ginther, under his next term, we see this develop into something that it has both a public part that is important to the riverfront, and then something else back here.
I like the chandeliers too.
Yeah, we could put them
Okay.
in the new place.
I just want to add, as the former public utilities director, we had very clean water. I think the mayor and I have different recollections of how bad the Scioto River was.
Okay, you're not off the hook with me just yet. I have one final question for each of you, but we do want the audience to be engaged. You're all here for a reason today, and I'm sure you're sitting at the table and you've had questions in your mind. So after this final question, for me, you could go over to Mantra there at the microphone in the back and line up and ask your questions to the panel. I was supposed to remind everyone a question ends with a question mark. So no major confrontations, but we look forward to hearing from the audience. And then if you're watching online, go ahead on the live stream. You can type your questions in, and we'll take questions from the live stream as well. So we're looking forward to what you would like to know. So the final question to each of you today, and we'll start at the end with Greg, is if you could wave a magic wand and improve something about downtown Columbus instantly, right now, no holds barred, what would it be?
Jeff's earlier point, I would shrink it, but I can't do that. But I think getting people downtown. The one thing, as I said earlier, I think the key is just having people living here, and everything else will go off of that. Getting people to come back downtown to work and making more available residential units, I think, is the key.
Jeff?
That's a hard question. Oh, magic wand, I don't know. There's a lot of things I think that we can do. I don't know that they really require a magic wand per se either. But, I think Broad Street and High Street being a lot different experience than they are currently is pretty important. I know that's a complicated thing to unravel in terms of traffic and buses and everything else, but I think that would be very important. I mean, the City of Columbus does suffer from some of the kind of widest right-of-ways for kind of roads of almost anywhere any of us visit, I think, too, right? And we have 16-foot sidewalks, typically from property line to curb, and then all these 5- and 8-lane roads, and next thing you know, there's 100 to 120 feet between buildings, and it just doesn't make for a great walking experience. So if there's a way to shrink, maybe that's the magic wand, is to kind of make all of the streets a lot more green and a lot more walkable. That'd be probably my magic wand wave. So.
Okay, nice.
I don't think it's a project. I think it's an attitude. And when I say that, I always said that a city that doesn't change falls behind. And sometimes I fear Columbus fearing success. Sometimes I'm concerned, and I don't want to see this happen, a level of satisfaction and complacency where everything's just cool, just leave it the way it is. I think you have to protect the assets we have, and risk a little bit in the future, think visionary, and have the attitude that we can get there if we all work together, and risk a little bit in a community that sometimes doesn't like the risk. So that would be it. Don't be complacent. Don't be satisfied. Always seek to get better and improve whatever we do. And that the past is only a building block for the future. But it's up to the next generation to actually put that building block on put a new block on the building block that's there. So do that. Put that building block and another building block and another building block, come up with new ideas and execute it.
All right, it is CMC's longstanding tradition to take audience questions. Mantra Moody with CMC is curating your questions from the live stream audience today as well. For those of you here in person with us, please, if you want to get up, please do not be shy. We're not shy people. Go to the microphone and ask your questions. What do you have for us, Mantra?
All right, thank you. And thank you for our panelists for being here. My first question is from Trip Lazarus, and he asks, are there any plans for grocery stores to be downtown for residents to walk to?
Well, I have lots of plans. In terms of reality, the one I mentioned to you, we are working with developers and folks across the country to try to identify a grocer to potentially come into the peninsula. That's one of the areas. Jeff has Hills Market that's downtown that is walkable in some areas, but we definitely need to do that. I think a lot of large cities, you might not need a supermarket, but just somewhere where you can go get milk, you can get fruit, you can get something to eat, you get prepared meals. So we need to figure that out for sure, but and obviously the Kroger downtown.
Yeah, I mean, I think in many cities, I mean, certainly closer, the Kroger for the people who live in the central business district is closer than 90% of the people that probably live in the suburbs groceries, so, and there is surface parking, like it or not, and I think Casto just announced a Lucky's up in the Neal Avenue area too. So it's not, maybe from a pure walkability perspective, it's not where it could be or should be from a grocery perspective, but it's certainly not inconvenient, I don't think.
Again, grocery stores, like all retail, are driven by its market.
100%.
It's driven by how many people live in the area that can shop there. When City Center was built, you remember City Center? It was built as a regional mall as opposed to focused on the area that it was actually located in. And that was a mistake. And grocery stores are going to do that. They're going to look at what's in the area, how many people live there, how many people can buy stuff in their stores. So again, residential goes back to residential and affordable residential.
First of all, I want to thank the panelists for addressing one of the most critical issues that we have in the city with affordable housing. My wife and I have been affordable housing providers in the Columbus area for 20 years. And over that period of time, we've seen the term affordable housing turn into an oxymoron. And that's very, very daunting. It's very disappointing to us. Right now, it is very challenging, and I appreciate the efforts those of you on the panelists are doing to increase affordable housing and housing in general in our region, but that's going to take time. Right now, today, I have residents that are struggling to make payments. The very last thing I want to see them is becoming housing insecure and potentially even homeless. In fact, it's gotten so bad that my wife and I are establishing our own nonprofit because we've worked with Impact, we've worked with a lot of the other safety net agencies out there, but everybody's running out of money. My question to you is, while we are developing the infrastructure, which arguably would have been nice to have started about 10 years ago, what can we do today to provide safety net support for the vulnerable populations? For example, my wife and I support the justice-involved community, which are returning residents coming out of prison. It's very difficult for them to get housing and to get jobs. We've also supported veterans and other disenfranchised communities. What can we do today as a community to be able to develop resources for these folks now so they don't face homelessness while we are following that goal and trying to achieve that goal of more affordable housing in Columbus?
Well, I don't know if we have enough time to answer that question properly, but, I would argue, having worked 20 years at the city, that the city and the county and others are doing that there are a lot of programs designed to do what you're saying. I agree it's not enough, it's never enough, but it's a matter of resources and choices, and I think the choices are beginning to change more in the direction that you're describing, and I think it's going to take a little bit of time. I do know a lot of the CARES Act that came from the federal government, the county and the city, they use that for some of the resources you're describing. We have a great homeless shelter and system, and again, not enough. I'm not going to argue that, but I do think this community takes that very seriously, and there's a lot of efforts towards that, but I don't think we're unique across the country in terms of maybe being not having enough resources for that particular thing. But as I mentioned, we're building a 100-unit affordable unit. I know there's other private developers that announce stuff downtown, developers like yourselves that are doing things. The state has programs with LIHTC and others that they're trying to do, but I think the need far outweighs the ability to provide that. But I think we're doing what we can. I can't answer that to say we're going to do it tomorrow, but I do think the community does a decent job of addressing that.
I'd go a step further and just say pay a living wage. But that's incumbent upon everybody in this room, right? Because if you fix housing, then it's medical care. And if you fix medical care, then it's transportation issues, or if food insecurity or something else, right? It really comes back to that. But I don't think, I'm positive that the whole world, the whole community in this instance has the stomach potentially for that, but that's really what it comes back to, right?
Question. All right, Nancy Nanny asks, are there any other cities in the U.S. or elsewhere in the world that provide some useful models for Columbus?
I know all of us have looked at this, and the answer is yes. Many cities in the nation and around the globe are examples that we can look at. I was in, a long time ago, I was in San Francisco. And in my first term, and noticed this park that was there and had water features. And I noticed how everybody just congregated in the park. And that notion said to me, you know what? We need more green space downtown. So let's go look at what's now called Sotomile. Toronto has, and Montreal, and Austin, many cities have done, Nashville, have all done some pretty neat things. Now they're starting to come to Columbus and look at us, by the way. That's a good thing. But I think we could take examples from other cities and adopt them here. Even Detroit has done some really neat things in its city that we have and can adopt. So there is not one city. Every city has a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And there's only one city that has it all, and you're in it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael Bongiorno. I'm Mike Coleman's personal architect. At least that's what I like to think my claim to fame is. I've got a question for the three of you gentlemen that is either going to be a hard question to answer or an easy one. Noting, you're very visible leaders with a platform in this community. As a moment of inspiration, tell me, each of you, in 5 words or less, what your tagline is for what you believe the potential of downtown to be. Like, what's the North Star you live by, and that you lead with, and how you think that's going to drive downtown forward?
That's a hard question. I would expect that out of you. 5 words or less. Well, I'll go last. Let me think about it.
That's really tough. I do believe, and I think the former mayor started it, and I think it's kind of cliche at this point, but I do think downtown should be everybody's neighborhood. And I think, if we can make it accessible to everyone and have opportunities for everyone to live, work, and play, I think we've succeeded.
Maybe just unlimited opportunity. Right? This is where surface parking lots actually going away, but being there. First of all, we'd all love to have had the buildings still be there, but now that they're gone, they've also provided kind of an unlimited opportunity to do things like create green spaces and things that in other cities you wouldn't have been able to do. So,
I can't add anything more than Greg Davies' quotation of me. All right, let me shut up.
Okay, another online question is from Corey Dippold. And this person asks, how much does tourism play into the planning of downtown?
We work really closely with Experience Columbus, which is the tourism. I'm serve on their board. It's huge, and I think that feeds hotels and feeds a lot of the retail that we're talking about. And again, we need people to be living here, coming here, working here. We need everything to kind of work together. We need the airport to be great. We need all of our services to be great, and I think we'll continue to attract people in large numbers. We have two great opportunities, if you're not familiar, but the PCMA is coming next month to Columbus, which is the second largest conference in the country. And then in June, the U.S. Conference of Mayors is coming, which mayors from all across the country will be convened in Columbus. And those are two great opportunities. We're going to show downtown off in both of them. The new Hilton is another great example of that. Former Mayor Coleman built the first Hilton, and similar to some of the other things he described, he asked me to lead that project. I was not well received going to build that hotel. Now we laugh about it, and we build a second one. And, you know, that's progress, and that's how we get things done. And to the mayor's earlier point, you just can't be afraid of trying something different.
Hi, given that the solution to getting the cars out of downtown is effective mass transit, and given that effective mass transit is necessary for high-density, affordable residential development, who among the planners of the region hates trains? Because I think if somebody liked trains, we would have them. And I go to other cities that have trains, and it's so nice to get around. Pardon me, some of the cities that were mentioned earlier are among them, so that was my question.
Yeah. I've always been a train advocate, and I don't know how long you've been here, but there was a failed proposal that I submitted to the community a while back, a long time ago, on a trolley system, bringing back the trolley system. You know, it didn't engender a lot of traction. So I killed the idea, but I thought it was a hell of an idea, and I was moving it along. There are other train opportunities, and that's connecting Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, and possibly other cities that's on the table now. And the goal would be to have it a station near the Hyatt area, in the convention center area, that used to be where the train station was located before a former mayor tore it down. So I do think trains are in the future for our city and for our state. Federal government has set aside I think it's $69 billion, if I'm not mistaken, it could be more or less, for train expansion and development in the country. And if Ohio gets the piece that I hope we get, you'll see trains running through Columbus, connecting cities up, and a train station downtown Columbus. And imagine people coming from Cleveland, which they already come anyway, right? Come from Cleveland to Columbus to shop at grocery stores downtown on a train.
One more question.
Yeah, very quickly. A lot of the barriers to really breaking down affordable housing and such are the regulations and the zoning requirements that go on, not only in downtown, but all the suburbs. Is there any movement to tackle those collectively as a metro so that we can build more homes outside so that more people can move into downtown, into the suburbs, and just keep the flow of people into the city?
Well, I will say that Mayor Ginther is, to his great credit, is evaluating and proposing a new zoning ordinance over the next period of time here. And, you know, Columbus's zoning ordinance, we've got some zoning lawyers in the room. I'm not going to point you out. You know who you are. And we do have an archaic zoning system in the city of Columbus. And it is, you know, it doesn't take into account what we really need to have density downtown. Not downtown in the city. We need to think differently about development. We need to think differently about transportation throughout the city. We need to do things differently going into the future. And so I think the new zoning code, as it evolves over the next year or so, when is that coming out, you think? With 23? 2025. 2025. It's very complicated, and but I'm confident that it's going to address some of the historic problems we have in zoning in the city of Columbus, get the right kind of development in the right kind of ways in communities across the city. Now, as it relates to other cities and other areas in the region, I don't think there's a discussion on zoning, but there is a discussion on shared responsibility. The shared responsibility of housing, providing for the poor, affordable housing, collaboration on development. All those things are on the table for serious, not on the table, they're actually talking about them. Not stealing from each other in terms of jobs and opportunities. All those things matter on a regional basis. And those things need to be solved as well. And not all the responsibility needs to be in the city of Columbus, a big bulk of it needs to be. But we need to share it with Dublin, New Albany, Grove City, Hilliard, everybody working together as a region to solve these regional problems that we have. And that's happening as we speak. And we have our development director here and chief of staff here who works on that regularly, daily.
Good stuff, Mayor. Nice. Well, I just want to say, I've worked in TV news for 25 years now. I'm from Ohio, but I've lived a lot of places. And I've lived in places where the downtown is almost obsolete and desolate. And to come here, I've been here for 7 years now, you don't know the gift, and I like that you brought that up, to appreciate what we have and how far the city's come. From an outside perspective, the gift to see construction cranes and development happening. Because if you've ever lived somewhere where nothing's happening and buildings are being torn down and you know nothing's going to ever replace it, at least not for a very long time, that's why people leave. So this is a gift, to see all these minds coming together and fighting for a bigger, better city and working together to make that happen is something really special about Columbus and part of the reason why I love living here. So thank you. And thanks to all of you. We'll hand it back over to Doug.
Okay, I want to thank as well today's presenting sponsor, the Harrison Smith Legacy and Civic Engagement Fund. Other sponsors today include Smoot Construction, Keeler and Nadler Family Wealth, Smith & Hell, MKSK, and the Sarah Gormley Gallery. Thank you to our online virtual seat patrons and to the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation and the Columbus Dispatch for supporting today's live stream. And lastly, a very special appreciation to Michael B. Coleman, Greg Davies, Jeff Edwards, and our host, Jessica Ralston. Let's have another round of applause for them. Please make plans now to attend our next forum on December 14th. It's about the nationwide origin story and why it matters today. We'll see you then. Everybody have a wonderful rest of the day.